Okay, so my name is Mordechai Zeller. I live in Ma'ale Gilboa. I thought I left early enough today to get here, but on the way, first of all, I made a wrong turn, and then I had to take 10 minutes around, and then I got stuck in this pkach right outside the tunnels, and I sat there saying, I'm not going to make it on time. And I remembered, I kind of heard Rav Froman laughing at me, because he used to, first of all, there was a while that I had the privilege, the zchut to be his driver. I had a car, and he needed to get places. And usually he'd go out and just trust God and catch dremping. But every now and then he'd be like, Mordechai, I need to get to such and such a place. Can you take me? And the truth is, having a car ended up being really important, because there was one day at one of the classes, I studied in Otniel, and after that I came and I studied in Tekoa, and we'd go to his house and learn Zohar with him. And one day after he finished teaching, in the middle of the teaching, he had a phone call from and he was talking about going to Ramallah to meet a bunch of sheikhs, and he needed to get to Ramallah the next day. And after everybody left, I stayed, and I was sitting there on the couch, and he's wondering why I'm not going. It's midnight, and I say, Rav Froman, I am here not to just learn from your Torah. I want to learn from you. Now at that time I had long hair that reached kind of the end of my back. I didn't own a button-down shirt, right? And I say, Rabbi, I have a car. I want to be your helper. And he kind of looks me over. And Rav Froman, he kind of eyed me from head to toe and said, you don't look like a rabbi's helper. I said, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, I'm picking you up and I will look like a rabbi's helper. I got a haircut, put on a nice button-down shirt, and I picked him up. And we had an amazing adventure that ended up being a time in my life that I was able to not just learn from his Torah, but from who he was. And we're going to learn a piece about Me'arat HaMachpelah today, which is one of my favorite pieces in the Zohar. In my professional life, besides, I used to do a bit of rabbiing, and I was a rabbi in Cambridge for a couple of years, and I was a mashgiach in Ma'ale Gilboa. But the past couple of years, I've been mainly working as a psychologist, and we're going to kind of weave these parts of my identity together, because at the end, the Zohar is, if I had to take a book to a desert island, it would be the Zohar. It's so rich, it's so full of myth, and the first time I fell in love with the Zohar was learning from Rav Froman, hearing the beauty, and not understanding, but hearing something about this text that drew me there. Okay, and we're going to learn something from him. And I know it said on the title that we'll be doing English and a little bit of dreams. It is Erev Parashat Vayetze, with the dream of Yaakov. And I was considering that. I'm at a Jungian conference for Shabbat, and I'll be teaching Jacob's Ladder there. So I'm going to be teaching something a little bit different, but there will be dreams. I promise. 1 second. Second. Just turn this off. Okay. So I had a privilege to be one of Rav Froman's students, and to have all kinds of great adventures with him. And there's once that I was a tour guide with a Christian from one of these, Christians who love Israel. And I'm in the middle of touring someplace, and Rav Froman called, and I said, look, we can continue in the southern excavation tours, or I can give you an experience of a once-in-a-lifetime. And they opted for the second thing. We got Rav Froman, we had to take him to Neve Ilan, he was supposed to be on television, and then we went to Tekoa, and they'll remind me of the high point of the tour was this unexpected meeting with Rav Froman. He was unexpected. He didn't prepare classes. He would come, and he would teach whatever was given to him, and whenever I gave him a title, he would dafka teach something else. So I'd bring him to Bomba Mela, to all these festivals, and I was with him in a rainbow festival once. But if we start talking about my memories with Rav Froman, will never end. So let's start learning a little bit of the text from the Zohar. Okay? And I started, the main piece here is from the Zohar, but I wanted to start with a Kabbalistic text from the 14th century by a person whose name is Rabbi Menachem Atzioni. Rabbi Menachem Atzioni, he was from Italy. He came to Israel, studied in Jerusalem, and then moved back to Germany. He has a book called Sefer Atzioni. And this is what he writes, and this is one of my favorite texts, okay? And it'll connect to what we're doing and a little bit to... he asks a question. He says, why is it that last week's parasha, when Yitzchak is about to give a blessing to his son, he says, make me food before I can give you a bracha? Why did he ask to make him food? Why is that important? And here's his answer. He says, and I bring the text in Hebrew and English, okay? Our sages taught, En hanevuah shora ela mitoch simcha. Prophecy dwells only from a place of joy. V'soda matamim, the secret of the delicious food, hu soda merkava, is the secret of the merkava. What is the merkava? One of the oldest names we have for the mystics. They would be called Yordei Merkava, so those who go down into the chariot. This is one of the images of God, which is fascinating. We're not going to go into this, but the image we have of God is of a moving God, a dynamic God, a God, I guess we're the nomadic people who walk through the desert, but God, he moves. There's something about him which is ever changing, ever growing. I know this sounds heretical, but we're learning Zohar. But Elohei Merkava, God, you might look for a second, but when you think you got it, it's gone. There's something else. And he says the following sentence. What Abraham achieved, reached through people. Yitzchak reached the same place through taste, through food. Yaakov al yedei sulam, Jacob reached it by ladder. David al yedei kino, and King David through music. Listen to this, it's amazing. 13th century, this isn't like postmodernistic, This is a Kabbalist saying, Avraham, he was a people person. Take him to a party. He's sitting there 3 days after his Brit Milah at the entrance to his tent waiting for people to come. That's what makes him open up to God. Yitzchak, he needed wine, food. You taste something good, it opens up not just your taste buds. You can taste something and say, this was divine. That was Yitzchak's way. Yaakov's way was a ladder. What does it mean, a ladder? I think it means sleeping. I think his way was dreaming. He's going through a hard time. The Zohar, on this week's parsha that we're not going to learn, he says that when the sun came down, and Vayalin Sham, Vayalin literally means like malon, like he slept there. The Zohar says, no, Vayalin, like Vayalonu Wa'am, he was complaining. And Kiba Shemesh, he was depressed. He left everything behind. He had nothing. This is the Zohar. This is how the Zohar reads text. And what does he do? He goes to sleep. And he dreams. And that magical dream of the ladder, we read this parasha, and he gave that secret on to his son, to Yosef, to be Baal HaChalomot. And David, he loved music. So there is going to be a dream here if we get to it, but we're going to start with Avraham and his encounter with people. Because one of the most amazing stories that I love in the Zohar have to do with this following story that appears in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is a late midrash. If you ask serious midrashistim, they'll say to you, no, give me midrash rabbah. But the truth is that the texts that seem old to us are actually usually the more ancient ones. It's the same about the Zohar Chadash. The Zohar, what is the Zohar? There's an early text that say the Zohar is many writings that you could put them all on the back of a camel. There's so many Zohar, like people would write little pieces of Zohar, and it has this story, and then somebody put them all together and put them out in 3 volumes. Okay, and that's when the Zohar suddenly appeared in the world. Okay, but years later, the parts that didn't make the first cut come out as Zohar Chadash. They're in Hebrew, they're not in Aramaic, and people said, what is this? But some of the later chokrim, later people who are researching this say these are the oldest parts of the Zohar. And I'll say the same is true for Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, which is the most mythic and the most connected to Zohar out of all the midrashim. It's fantastic things. It's supposedly the person who taught it is Rabbi Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, which is amazing because the Mishnah says he was like a bol sud, like a well that didn't lose any water, but he wasn't a spring of water. He didn't forget anything that he received, but he says things that nobody has heard anywhere else. So this is fascinating. Okay, so this is what he says, and I'm sure you know the story. Avraham has the angels who come to visit him, and he wants to feed them. So he ran to bring a calf. He's running after this baby calf who's running away. Right? You know the story? He's running after a calf, but it fled from him and went into the Machpelah cave. So Avraham is like running after this little calf to try to feed him to his guests, and this calf is like chasing, going between these like nooks and crannies, and suddenly he goes into a cave. He never saw the cave, but he's looking for this calf. Avraham went in after it and found Adam and Eve lying on their beds asleep, with candles burning around them and a good smell upon them, like the sweet smell of an offering. Therefore, he desired the cave as a burial plot. The Midrash is trying to ask, why does Avraham come to Ephron and say, give me this specific place? What did he know? What did he see that we don't know? What's missing in our story? And they say that there's a moment where he suddenly discovered this place. And when he went in, it wasn't just a cave that was beautiful. He goes in there and sees Adam and Eve, not dead, sleeping. You know, sleep is a 60th of death. And sometimes we like to imagine that we're just going to sleep. But every sleep is a little bit like death. And death is a little bit like the great sleep that we don't wake up from, or we do wake up one day when there'll be Tchiyat HaMetim. But he sees them. They're not decomposed. They're not skeletons. They're sleeping. And he understands that he's in a sacred space because he says, I want this place. Or I need this place. Or I want to bury my wife here, which literally means I'm going to be buried here. There's a story about Ben Gurion when his wife Paula died. And have anybody been to the grave of David Ben Gurion? It's at the edge of the cliff, and the tractors were there, and he knew he was going to be buried there. And he took them to the edge of the cliff. And then the people were like, engineers, they take him 500 meters back, and he takes them there, and they take him back. And after a while, Ben Gurion, he was a stubborn man. He yelled at them, are you going to be buried here, or am I going to be buried here? Because he's choosing his grave, and he wanted to be there. And what a thing this is, to stand not just facing our mortality, but to choose. We like saying, because nobody wants to do it, choosing a place in a cemetery is a segula for arichut yamim. It will help you live a long life. So, if it is or if it isn't, I don't know, but we need to help people face that, but that'll be in a different class, right? A little bit of Jungian psychology before we jump into the Zohar. Marie-Louise von Franz, one of the closest students of Carl Jung, she has a book called Shadow and Evil in Fairy Tales. And she says the following. You may temporarily disobey the advice of the helpful fox or the wolf or the cat. In all the stories, right? In these grim tales, there's like an animal who comes and you need to follow him or he gives advice. You can temporarily disobey the advice. But if basically you go against it, if you don't listen to the helpful animal or bird or whatever it is, or whatever, any animal gives you advice and you don't follow it, you're finished. In the hundreds and hundreds of stories from all different traditions, that is the one rule which seems to have no exception. However, when we analyze what the animal says, it's completely contradictory. One says to run away, one says to fight, another to lie, another to tell the truth. The animal plays it this way and that from an ethical standpoint, but if you go against it, you're lost. This would mean that obedience to one's most basic inner being, following that animal, one's instinctual inner being is the one thing which is more essential than anything else. In all nations, in all fairy tales material, I have never found a different statement. So Avram runs after, there's some places we can't get to with our conscious mind. We can try. You can't get there. There's another story in our tradition of somebody who comes to a sacred spot because he's running after an animal. What am I talking about? Moshe Rabbeinu, who runs after one of his flock, a goat, a little goat, and he finds himself at the burning bush. This Midrash says he wouldn't, you can try to get to a burning bush, but you need to follow something young, small, unconscious, animalistic. Sometimes we fight those parts, but both Avram and Moshe found these amazing spiritual experiences by following them. This is already something being said here. Okay, let's do some Zohar, okay? And this is the Zohar, and we'll see the connection to the story of Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. I turned my, you know what, I'll just have to turn this back on to see what time it is. Okay. The Zohar is written in Aramaic, and it moves between Hebrew and Aramaic, and it's beautiful Aramaic. Again, I like the Aramaic of the Gemara, but I love the Aramaic of the Zohar. It can make me cry when I hear the descriptions and some words. Like, I'll just read it, and it's like poetry. And the more you learn it, and the more you love it, the Zohar is like a living being, and the more you learn it, it'll start discovering, revealing its secrets to you. I haven't taught Zohar for many years. This Hoshana Rabbah, we just started a chabura in Ma'ale Gilboa. We call it Hazohar Atzfuni, the Northern Lights. And people gather at 9 o'clock at our house, and we learn Zohar together. And it's just been such a long time that, again, it took a while to jump back in, but we learned this a couple weeks ago, so I'm sharing this now. Rabbi Elazar said, I don't know why here it's Rabbi Elazar and here it's Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. 1 second. זה לא אותו קטע. רגע. Okay, 1 second. Okay, it is. It's a little bit. Hang on. Rabbi Elazar said, let's follow the English. It'll get there in a second. This is why I needed a Zohar. Let's it is 1 second. Okay, let's go with the English, okay?
You want a real one?
I didn't see one here. Is
Right
that?
there.
Oh. You know, pass me Zohar on Chayei Sarah. Rabbi Elazar said, when Avram entered the cave, how did it happen? He was running after that calf, as it is written. Avraham ran to the herd. Ela bakar ratz Avraham. And the calf fled to that cave, so he entered after it and saw what he saw. Further, he used to pray there every day. בצד השני? אז דילגתי קצת ב...
יש רבי אלעזר, אתה רואה ב10 שורות, 8 שורות ממנו.
Okay, so the parts we're skipping is about how it says that when a person is about to die, he sees the image of man, of Adam, of his ancestor. Okay? But I see that we're... Oh, here we go. Rabbi Elazar Amar. Okay, great. So it's on the other side. So let's continue with the English, okay? So he used to pray there every day, going out to that field, which emitted sublime fragrance. He smelled something there. It wasn't just that he followed this calf and found this cave. He would go there every day and he would pray there. This was his place of prayer. I think that meant that, like, his prayer there, something happened to his prayer. The Midrash says that Me'arat HaMachpelah is the entrance to Gan Eden. And I think there's something about the fact that Adam and Eve are buried there, that it's like the gateway. It's the closest point that connects these worlds. Later on in the Zohar, it says a Machpelah. Why is it Machpelah? Not because Adam and Eve are buried there, but because to be a Mekubal, to be a Kabbalist, it means that you live in different realms at the same time. We think Mekubal means to receive. But Mekubal is because there's Yerushalayim Shel Mala and Yerushalayim Shel Mata. There's a world above and a world below. It means parallel. To be a Kabbalist means to see parallels between inside and out, between up and above, between my soul and the letters, to live as, to see these parallels is what it means. It's not just I received from him, we received from him. It's like to live behakbala, to say, okay, I understand, as in a couple parashot when Yehuda, he's speaking to Yosef, but he's also speaking to God. How do we do that? How do we live in this world and lead a spiritual life at the same time? We do them both. And so there's something about Me'arat HaMachpelah. The Zohar says this is Machpelah. He saw light radiating from the cave. So there he prayed. And there the Blessed Holy One spoke with him. Okay? Not only did he go there to pray, Hashem would speak to him back. There. So he found himself every day going, this was his I don't know if I want to say a man cave, but it was his shtiblach. He had a place that was his. He had a place that he would daven. Sarah would be like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going out, right? And he'd go to his cave and he would pray there. But not just his prayer changed there, and God would speak to him there. That's where his nivuah took place. Therefore he asked for it, since his desire focused constantly on that site. You might ask, if so, why didn't he ask for it until now? Why did he wait until Sarah died to ask for it? He could have asked for it when he found it. So they would not scrutinize him, seeing that he didn't need it. He didn't want them to ask too many questions. He says, timing is right. Right now I'm praying there. The time will come that I'll ask for it. And that time, when did it happen? When Sarah died. Now that he needed it, he said, the time has come to request it. Come and see. Bo'u'eh. Tachaze. Okay? The Zohar and this Yom Yun is called Tachaze. Come and see. And we know, and Rav Froman used to teach this all the time, the Gemara says Tashma. Come and listen. The Zohar doesn't say come and listen. The Zohar says come and see. What's the difference between hearing and seeing? When I hear, I'm using my verbal understanding. Unless I hear a cry or a shofar. But I hear words that I need to translate into what they mean. But when I see the visual aspect of it, there's something more primal about it. Meaning like a kid sees a tree. First he sees, and it's a tree, he sees it in all of its magnificence. And then he learns that it's called a tree. So he can say tree, and I hear tree, and I can imagine that. But to see something is what the Zohar tries to allow us. It enables us a mystical experience which is direct, and it's visual. And as we learn Zohar, by the way, and I say we should learn Zohar the way we learn dreams. We need to imagine them. We need to as we read it, try to picture it in your mind's eye. Because it takes us on a visual journey, the Zohar, and it shows us things in our imagination. So as we're reading this, and I also say we learn it like a dream, because you don't start saying, how could it be? The Zohar says this, and the next sentence says the opposite. That's what Rav Froman loved about it. It doesn't need to be consistent. He would laugh at a book of one of his teachers in university who wrote a book called Mishnat HaZohar, meaning what is the Zohar's Mishnah? And he would laugh at that and say the Zohar can say one thing, and the next sentence say the opposite. It is not bound by logic. And once, everybody would say that. People would say to him, Rav Froman, how could you, it doesn't make sense. And once he said to me, Mordechai, the world doesn't make sense. God doesn't make sense. Politics doesn't make, you want me, Menachem Froman, to make sense? It doesn't make sense. Let it go. Tachaze, come and see. If Ephron would see in the cave what Abraham saw, he would never sell it. So if Ephron, Have Chame, would see in the cave what Abraham saw, he would never sell it to him. The translation, by the way, that I'm bringing here is Danny Math's translation. That he went into his own cave for 12 years and translated the Zohar. He's a great Kabbalist. He was in, I think, in Berkeley for many years. But he teaches Zohar online, and he's a beautiful Danny Met. And he did most of the Zohar. He didn't do the Zohar Chadash, but there's 13, 14 huge yellow books of the Zohar. And I love his translation because he'll bring it, but sometimes he won't translate. He'll leave things as they are. But he has a lot of anava as well, the animal. If Ephron would see in the cave what Avraham saw, lo yasmin la le'almin, he would never sell it. Ela vadai lo chama ba velo klum. But of course, Ephron didn't see anything that Avraham saw. Meaning, again, two people can go into the same cave, and one can see Adam and Eve, and smell, and see light, and daven to Hashem, and have a mystical experience. Another person will come in and see nothing. If we go back to the burning bush, it says, Vayera elav Hashem belabat ha'esh. And there's a midrash that says, why does it say elav? Because many other people were with him, but the vision was to him. Other people walked by, didn't see it. And belabat ha'esh, labat is like lev, it's in his heart. So here it says, Avram was worried that if he says, I really want this cave, he'll be like, oh, what is it? There must be something I'm missing. So he waited for the right time. But the Zohar says, what would happen if Ephron would see it and they say, no. Ephron would not be able to see what Avram saw. Because, late mila, and I'm reading it with the Aramaic, late mila itgalia ela lemari. Things are only revealed to those who are connected to them, or to those who own them. And I don't mean ownership in like I am the owner, but I mean like, a connection which is deep, which is intimate. Like when we marry somebody, it's not like she's mine, but I'm deeply connected to her, kiddushin, in the sense of to be sacred to each other. But it could be that we see something that nobody else does. I hope that in the eyes of our spouse that we see things that nobody else sees, that they see that in ourselves as well. And that we see that in our kids and they see that in us. But it happens with objects as well. Jung has a term called participation mystique, which is about a moment that I can get lost in something not human. It could be an animal, it could be a plant, and for a second I not only see myself reflected, I lose the boundary between me and it because it's connected to me in a deep way. These are powerful moments. This participation mystique. Late milait galia ela lemare. Things aren't revealed only to those who are connected to it. Ubegin kach. How did he write it here? For whom has no share in it. Okay? Meaning he didn't have a share in it. It wasn't connected to him. It's interesting because the word for money in Hebrew is kesef, which comes from kisufin, which is yearning. When I yearn for something, then the money represents my yearning for that. And the Kabbalistic and Hasidic literature are filled with that. Like, when I see something that I love, or that tastes good to me, it means that that thing is connected to my soul. Now, it doesn't mean go on a shopping spree and buy everything you want. And whenever I open my Amazon page and it says, Ha'agala shel charika, I think of the Chazon Ish. I think of the empty. He wants. This is a whole other story. That was somebody. I have to be careful here. But he said once that religious Jews are like a wagon that's full, and he said that people who aren't religious are like an empty one. Sometimes I think that religious people need to learn a little bit the secret of emptiness. What that means. But here there's something where he goes into the cave and he sees something that Ephron doesn't. ובגין כך לאברהם התגליה ולא לאפרון. Ephron couldn't see it. לאברהם התגליה דילי הווה. Avram saw it. What does that mean? It's his. It belongs to him. לאפרון לא הווה תתגליה לי. It wasn't revealed to Ephron. Why? דלא הווה לי חולקה בי. He had no share in it. It wasn't his. How often do we have things in our life that aren't ours? Reb Nachman has this famous story about the person who had a diamond and that he loses it. And this whole crazy story, right? And at the end, what does Reb Nachman say? The diamond wasn't his. How do we know? Because he lost it. The ship was his. How do we know? Because he got it. There's something deterministic about it. But there's something about asking those questions of what is mine and what isn't mine? How do we hold on to things that aren't ours? And how do we see through seeing and through being out and trying to listen, not just with our to listen deeply with our eyes, to be tachaze, to use our eyes as objects that allow us to see what is ours and what isn't. ובגין כך לא התגלה לאפרום כלום. And because of that, nothing was revealed to Ephraim. Not only did he not see anything, all he saw was darkness. And for that, he sold it. Because all he saw was darkness. And what? The reason that Avraham didn't ask for it at the beginning. Avraham lo ke'amar ela yiten li et me'arat ha'machpelah. Okay? At the beginning, what does he say? Avraham only said, give me the cave of Machpelah. And what does he say? The field I'll give to you and the cave. Right? He asked for one thing and he got double. He says, I asked for the cave, he gave me the field too. Why is that? Not only did he not see it, not only did he see darkness, it revolted him. Ma'isale. He hated it. He felt something inside that, there's attraction and suddenly like feeling like pushed away by something. And these are important things to be able to listen to and understand them also in a spiritual sense. What does it mean that I'm attracted to something? Attraction is unconscious, but it's very important. It's not the only important thing. But if people will tell you that attraction on every level, when we date somebody and say, well, I'll learn how to... No, attraction is important because it's unconscious. And our unconscious is smarter, usually. No, always, than our conscious mind. Now, it doesn't mean it's the only thing, but we have to follow that calf. We have to follow that goat and listen to them sometimes, because they're the only ones who can take us to the sod. Tachaze, come and see. There's an invitation here. Tachaze, come and see. Come in. Kad al Avraham be'me'arata be'kadmita. When Avraham went into the cave for the first time, chamat man nehora. He saw there a great light. V'itrame afra kameh. And the earth suddenly lifted up in front of him. It's like, imagine that. You're coming into a cave and suddenly the earth starts shaking and something comes out of the ground. Something that was buried for a long time. Can you see it in your mind's eye? Something coming out of the ground? Imagining kind of like Aladdin at that moment at the beginning, when suddenly these, right? Suddenly something that has been hidden becomes revealed. In my clinic, I work with sandboxes. And the amazing thing that people will hide in the sand. And I'll find them weeks later. But what is hidden and what is revealed? What's hidden and what's revealed? So suddenly, Trame Afra, the earth suddenly lifts up. And he sees two graves. So first of all, two graves. You say, what is this? Empty graves? Are these graves being used? Is it him and Sarah's grave? What does he see? Adehacha Istalek rises up. Adam bedyukane. Who does he see? Adam. Adam Arishon. What is bedyukane? How do you translate that? Dyukane means in his image, but who's the his? Is it in his image? I don't know if he knew what Adam looked like. I think it's in his image. I think it's like he's standing in front of a mirror. I know we have, I think the Gemara says this, that Yaakov looked like Adam Arishon, that the beauty of Yaakov was similar. But here we're talking about Nachon Zal Yaakov. But here Avraham stands and he sees somebody who looks like him. Now, first of all, this is an amazing moment. Let's just read it till the end. Istalek Adam bedyukne. He stands up in his image. Chamele le'Avram. He sees Avraham. They're looking eye to eye. V'chayich. What does he do? He smiles. V'bei have yad Avram detman hu zamin leitkabra. And at that moment, through that smile, through that moment of seeing himself in the eyes of this ancestor, he was flooded with knowing that I'm going to be buried here. What is that moment of saying, first of all, I'm going to die. I lost my wife. I'm going to bury her. No, this is before he lost his wife. This is when he went in for the first time. But he had a moment, a mystical moment of, I don't know, seeing his life, seeing his death, knowing he'll be buried here, coming in touch with that chain of his ancestors, seeing himself reflected in the eyes of someone. Now, also that smile, it's not, there is going to be dialogue, but we could stop here because he smiles at him. What is that smile? In the mystical discourses of the Buddha, there's one discourse. He taught a lot of teachings, but there's one teaching that he takes a flower that was blossoming and he held it up. And all of his students looked like, oh, and one student smiled. And the one who smiled, he gave him the flower. And this is transmission because this is the birth of Zen Buddhism. This was the student, this is what I don't know, maybe. No, I'm telling it wrong?
It's okay.
Okay. But the smile represented the flower blossoming, and it's a nonverbal moment of awakening that started a whole school of receiving. It was like a moment of awakening. So this is how I see the smile. And often we, stand in front of our kids and we say something, and I say, oh, God, I sounded like my father, or oh no, I sounded like my mother, right? And which would be a great thing. How often do we say something and we sound like our grandparents? Has that ever happened to you? Maybe. How often did you say something and said, I sound like my great-great-great-great-grandfather? Never. Because we don't know our great-great-great-grandfather. If we're lucky, we knew our great-grandparents. Okay, and maybe we remember something. But I'm sure that in some way we've internalized our parents who internalized their internalized. Sometimes we'll say or act in a way which we have within us all the unfulfilled and fulfilled lives of our ancestors. And Avraham is going down into the cave, into his unconscious, and meeting something. And he knew his moment of death came. Amar le Avram b'matu minach. Avram, please, kustra ktir itacha. I don't know how he translated kustra ktir. Kustra, it's like a castle. And ktir, it's like ktoret, which is incense. But what does ktir mean in Aramaic? To tie. Because ktir is like kshir. It's like tet and shin switch in Aramaic. So ktoret means that which binds. So it's almost like saying, I'm bound to this castle, to this cave, this burial site. Itacha. And I'm here. Amar le kutsha brichut marani hacha. God, he doesn't even say buried. God hid me here. V'mehau zimna adhashta. It tmarna. And from then until now I've been hidden. Kegilda de kirta. There's a lot of translations like a fish. Libes, Professor Libes, who we'll meet soon, he says, Kegilda de kirta, like the top of a carrot coming out of the ground. What an image, right? It almost sounds like that, kirta, like a carrot, right? That's what he says. Gilta de kirta. I'm like waiting for someone to pluck me out of the ground. Ad da'atit ant be'alma, until you came into the world. Hashta mikan ve'ela hakiyum ali ule'alma beginach. And now, thanks to you, the whole world has kiyum, is like standing. Chame makti vayakam asadeh ve'amara asher bo. It says when he buys it, and that the field and the cave vayakam, which means they stood. They suddenly, litkayem means to exist. They suddenly existed. Meaning, the cave and the field and Adam HaRishon is suddenly saying, I am now existing thanks to you. This is like backwards like we don't only fix our children, we can do something that fixes the past in a mystical way. So there's backwards evolution. Ki ma mamash havele, ma delo havele hashta, what it wasn't until now. Rabbi Abba amar vayakam hasadeh, ki ma mamash, it got up, it stood up, it existed. Dekam v'istalekme, lifted up the Avram in front of Abraham. Begin de ad hashta lo itchaze itman klum, because before then we didn't see anything. V'hashta ma dehave tamir kam v'istalek. That was hidden. Istalek isn't in Hebrew that disappeared. Istalek was rised up. V'chdein kam kola benimusoy. Everything existed the way it should. So this is the meeting of Avraham and Adam. Amar Rabbi Shimon, b'shata dal Avram b'me'arata ve'ayl saratma. Now we're jumping 20 years, or I don't know how long. He's coming in with the body of Sarah to bury her. What's going to happen now? If this cave is a mirror, who are they going to meet now? Any guesses? Al Avram b'me'arata ve'ayl saratman. He brings in Sarah into the cave. Kamu Adam v'Chava. Who do they see? Adam and Eve, both father and mother. V'lo kabilu li'tkabratman. And they weren't letting them through. They said, "You're not coming in here." Amru ma'anan bekisufa kmeiku chabrichu. We are filled with kisufa, busha. We're embarrassed because of our sin. We were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. Anan bekisufa kmeiku chabrichu behau alma, in that world. Begina uchova de garimna, because of our sin that we caused. Vehashta itvasef lan kisufa achra. Now we'll be even more embarrassed that you're going to be buried next to us because you guys look so good. You're just going to make us look bad. Meaning, like a bit of jealousy there. There's something intergenerational saying, you're doing things so well, it's making me look bad. When a kid suddenly becomes Baal Tshuva and the parents say, "What, you don't like the way I lived my life?" Or a kid starts keeping kosher more, becoming more this, and the parents are like, "What is this?" Right? We do these things and we want our kids to continue us, but they're always changing and developing. And here Adam and Eve, the ancestors, are saying, no, this isn't good. Mar Avraham, and Avram stands in front of Adam and Eve. Ha'anan zmin kmei kud shabrichu. I am Zamin. I'm available to God. Beginach, because of you. Delo tichsif kmei le'almin, and you will never be embarrassed of me. Because who I am in the world, and my standing here, and my speaking to God, is also on your behalf. What a moment. We're not standing here separately. Who I am is connected to who you were. And what I do has to do with what you did right or wrong. But it's not that I'm going to make you embarrassed.
I'm gonna make you proud.
I'm going to make you... Maybe.
But the question is, how would you translate beginach? Beginach is
So-
for you or thanks to you? The fact that
I think that the pshat is for you. I think that, it's Thanksgiving, we gotta... But I don't know, maybe it's both. I think the pshat is, I'm going to speak to God for you.
So to speak to God about what? Don't be
About your
embarrassed,
sin,
don't be
about
ashamed,
what you did. I'm gonna bring
or
fixing.
ask forgiveness for you?
I don't know. Do you think Adam needs forgiveness? What do our ancestors need? I think they need to look at us and see that what we're doing is connected to them. How does he translate this?
Because if Adam is like feeling shame and embarrassed, and he said to Abraham, "You better than me," right? Therefore, I feel embarrassed because of what I did, and then maybe Adam tell him, "You know what? I'm standing in front of God and talking to Him, but it's thanks to you.
Yeah. So I like the
It's not
thanks better.
despite you, but it's thanks to you. It's
Exactly. I think that's the true pshat in a way. And Danny Matt says, I'm destined to appear before the Blessed Holy One on your behalf, so that you will never more be ashamed in His presence. But I think he's saying, I am standing in the world. Who I am is because of who you were. What a beautiful thing to say. Imagine anybody who did things different than his parents. Sometimes I'll sit with kids who are like Chiloni and their parents are Baal Tshuva, and I sit and I say, guys, you're both very similar. You both didn't do and follow the way your parents taught you. You both had the chutzpah to be something different. Okay.
Yeah, I think also maybe there's like an intergenerational tikkun that now Abraham becomes like the father for like Adam and Chava. He has no parents. He says, "I'm going to be your parents. I'm going to turn to Hashem," and now he's the avot. He has Abraham Avinu.
Yeah, I think so. And this is all based. Oh, so first of all, like I think you're right, and this is all based on a teaching that we all know that says, and I have 5 minutes, so bear with me here. Ele toldot hashamayim va'aretz behi bar'am. This is the story of the creation of the heaven and earth as they were created. But the Midrash says, Al tikri behi bar'am. What is the letters of hi bar'am? Be'avraham. There's a connection here of Avraham and Adam and Eve. And the story just goes, and we'll do just a tiny bit more, where he says, you're not going to be embarrassed. I'm thanking you for who I am in the world. Miyad v'achrechen kavar Avraham et Sarai ishto. My v'achrechen, what is achrechen? Something happened here that we don't see. The Zohar fills in the blanks. Batar de kabil Avraham alei milada. After Avram said, I am here because of you, Adam al beduchte. Adam went back. Chava lo alat. But Eve, she's still standing, saying, something's not done yet. Ad de kariv Avram ve'ayla legabei Adam ve'kabila begine. Avram helped put her back in her place as well. I don't know what he did differently, but then it says, Kavar Avram et Sara ishto. Why doesn't it say le Sara ishto? What does it mean et? So et means ribui, means Avram wasn't only bearing Sarah, he was bearing Eve. And I want to say something about mourning and about death. When we lose somebody and we bury our loved ones, we're burying all the ones that we thought we buried before. And we're burying who they are personally and the archetypal mother they are. And there's something happening on both levels all the time. It's not just a personal, it's a transpersonal experience. And there's something beautiful about this moment. Okay? And then, right, Ele toldot shamayim va'aretz behi bar'am. Lo ktiv toldot shamayim va'aretz, lo toldot barnash. Begine ve'Avram, thanks to Avraham. Okay? Ad de'ata Avraham lo yitkaimu Adam v'Chava, beduchtayu behai alma. Until Avram appeared, Adam and Eve were not established in their sights in that world. And we're going to skip Reb Chaim Vital has a dream of meeting Adam in the middle of the shuk, right? He doesn't need to go into a cave. But I want to read a dream by Carl Jung with you. Jung says you can look at dreams and read them based on old midrashim or old myths. So we have this myth, which is in our tradition, and I want to read to you this story. This is a famous dream in the history of psychoanalysis because Jung and Freud are on a boat to America together, and Freud says, tell me your dreams. And this is the dream he told him. And this is the beginning of the crack between them. Okay? Listen to this. I was in a house I did not know, which had 2 stories. It was my house. I found myself in the upper story, where there is a kind of salon furnished with fine old pieces in Rococo style. On the walls hung a number of precious old paintings. I wondered that this should be my house and thought, not bad. Okay? I'm just explaining. He's in a house that's his, but he doesn't know it. He's saying, wow, what a beautiful house. And where is he? He's in the upper floor. But then it occurred to me that I didn't know what the lower floor looked like. You don't need to be a Jungian to try to translate what this means. Okay? Descending the stairs, I reached the ground floor. There, everything was much older. I realized this part of the house must date from about the 15th or 16th century. Oh, Tzfat, right? 16th century. Like Jung, by the way, loved alchemical texts, and he loved the 15th, 16th century because of alchemy. The furnishings were medieval. The floors were of red brick. Everywhere was rather dark. I went from one room to another thinking, now I must really explore the whole house. I came upon a heavy door and opened it. Beyond it, I discovered a stone stairway that led down into a cellar. By the way, sulam, we think of it as a wooden thing that connect, but a sulam is like stone steps. Descending again, I found myself in a beautifully vaulted room that looked exceedingly ancient. Examining the walls, I discovered layers of brick among the ordinary stone blocks and chips of brick in the mortar. As soon as I saw this, I knew that the walls dated from Roman times. My interest by now was intense. I looked more closely at the floor. It was of stone slabs, and one of these I discovered a ring. When I pulled it, the stone slab lifted, and I saw a stairway of narrow stone steps leading down into the depths. By the way, he called it psychology. Depth psychology. These two, I descended and entered a low cave cut into a rock. Does this sound familiar? Thick dust lay on the floor, and in the dust were scattered bones and broken pottery, like remains of a primitive culture. I discovered 2 human skulls, obviously very old and half disintegrated. And then I awoke. Freud heard this and said, "Who are they? You have a death wish. Who are you trying to kill?" He thought he was trying to kill him, which he might have wanted to kill him. But Jung says he didn't understand. This wasn't about him. But I said, it's my wife and my sister-in-law. But he didn't understand. This is Jung's dream of going deep, deep, layer after layer into the unconscious. And what does he find? His Adam and Eve. They're disintegrated. There are 2 skulls there. But he comes in touch with the earliest parts of who he is, with his early ancestors. And there's something about that which is amazing and monumental, big dream moment for him. And this happened on a boat to America over the ocean. And when I read this, I see this midrash here. Because the midrash tells us when we go deep inside to our unconscious, we discover things. We come in touch. Avraham loved people, and he found God through his connection to people. But his connection wasn't just with people around him. It was with his ancestors. How important for somebody who starts a tradition to be in touch with his ancestors. For somebody who didn't continue Terach to say, yes, but I'm connected to my great-great-great-grandfather. So we're going to end here. Thank you all for joining me, for learning together. And I hope may this open up some things in the Zohar for all of us, because it really is a beautiful, magnificent book. And whoever looks there will find great treasure. Great treasure. Toda Rabba.
Thank you.